The effectiveness of a muscle in generating force depends on where the tendon attaches to the bone, insertion point. If Devon's pronator teres inserts slightly farther from the joint than in a typical arm wrestler, his pronation strength would be significantly higher due to torque and lever mechanics. Torque is defined as force multiplied by the moment arm, and a longer moment arm, the distance from the fulcrum to where force is applied, allows for greater rotational force with the same muscle effort. If his pronator teres attaches farther from the medial epicondyle or has a thicker insertion on the radius, this creates a greater pronation moment in arm wrestling positions. This means he can generate more rotational force without increasing effort, making his pronation more efficient and harder to counter. Pronation force isn't just about raw power, but about how effectively that power is applied at different angles. If Devon's pronator insertion is in an optimal position, his wrist rotation is more mechanically efficient, allowing him to pronate with less fatigue over time compared to his opponents. This could explain his ability to maintain an open top roll position while keeping constant rotational pressure. Tendon attachment sites adapt over years of extreme resistance, becoming denser and more robust. Devon's years of training have likely caused thickening of the pronator teres tendon, reinforcing his ability to generate superior force. Stronger, thicker tendons result in more force transfer to the bone, increasing pronation strength. The pronator teres and pronator quadratus work together, but the pronator teres has the strongest influence on rapid force application. If his tendon insertion allows for greater moment arm leverage, it means more force per contraction, less effort required for the same torque output, and a lower risk of pronator fatigue. Stronger insertion points distribute force more evenly, preventing excessive strain on weaker areas. This could explain why Devon has sustained fewer serious wrist injuries despite years of intense matches. The pronator teres originates from the medial epicondyle of the humerus and the coronoid process of the ulna, and inserts onto the lateral surface of the radius. If Devon's insertion is positioned slightly differently, it may increase the angle at which force is applied, provide a greater mechanical advantage when resisting an opponent's supination, and make his pronation more dominant even when his arm is extended, as seen in his open top roll technique. The length of his radius and ulna relative to his hand size could also play a role. A longer radius with a well-positioned pronator insertion enhances rotational force application. This means he can engage pronation more effectively even when his wrist is compromised, making it harder for opponents to stop his rotation in either direction. If Devon's pronator teres insertion is positioned farther from the joint than the average arm wrestler, he would have a natural mechanical advantage in torque generation. This, combined with years of adaptation, enhances his endurance, force efficiency, and ability to resist opponent supination, making his pronation nearly unstoppable. When tendons experience high tensile stress, mechanotransduction occurs. This is the process where mechanical forces trigger cellular responses. Devon's constant pronation and gripping movements put chronic high loads on his wrist, forearm, and elbow tendons, signaling them to adapt by growing thicker and stronger. Long-duration static holds, common in arm wrestling training, increase tendon stiffness and collagen deposition. Devon often engages in long defensive battles, which means his tendons endure sustained high tension, forcing long-term thickening. Studies show that tendons respond to high-load isometric contractions by increasing cross-sectional area over time. Tendons have low blood supply, which makes their adaptation slower but more permanent under repeated stress. High-tension activities like arm wrestling create localized hypoxia, low oxygen levels, in tendon cells, triggering angiogenesis, new capillary formation. This results in better nutrient delivery and enhanced tendon metabolism, accelerating thickening and strengthening over time. Tendons continue adapting for decades if exposed to consistent mechanical loading. Devon's decades of training have caused his tendons to accumulate collagen layers, increasing thickness and load-bearing capacity. When pronation is engaged, the biceps brachii is mechanically weakened because it is most effective as a flexor in a supinated position. This shifts the workload to the brachialis and brachioradialis, which do not depend on wrist position and can generate more consistent flexion force in a pronated grip. When Devon pronates while cupping, wrist flexion, he maintains a stronger grip by engaging both pronation and flexor muscles at once. Opponents who rely on wrist flexion alone, without pronation, are more vulnerable to being peeled open by a strong pronator. Lifts at 80 to 90% of max, performed in the 1 to 5 rep range, activate type 2 fibers for maximum torque output. This improves Devon's ability to explosively pronate and counter opponent forces. In contrast, reps in the 15 to 30 range, with lighter resistance, improve type 1 fiber efficiency. This helps Devon maintain pronation over long matches without fatigue. The size principle states that smaller, slow twitch fibers activate first, followed by fast twitch fibers when higher force is required. Devon's mixed training strategy ensures that all fiber types are optimized, preventing weaknesses in either endurance or explosiveness. Heavy pronation lifts train high threshold motor units, making them more efficient at producing force quickly. High rep work increases low threshold unit endurance, ensuring fatigue resistance during extended pulling matches. Explosive pronation in quick wins demonstrates his fast twitch fiber development through heavy weights, while sustained pronation over long matches proves his slow twitch fibers are highly developed. Opponents struggle against his pronation because purely fast twitch athletes gas out against him, while purely endurance-based opponents lack explosive pronation torque. Devon has a perfect balance of power and endurance, making his pronation almost unstoppable. The pronator quadratus is a shorter muscle that plays a greater role in stabilization rather than explosive force production. However, through training, muscle adaptation can significantly increase its strength, endurance, and capacity for long-duration control. In Devon's case, this muscle likely becomes larger and more resilient due to his intense and frequent training. The increased cross-sectional area of the pronator quadratus would improve its ability to stabilize his forearm and control wrist rotation, even during highly fatigued states in arm wrestling. The pronator quadratus is activated during subtle adjustments of wrist and forearm positioning, especially when the pronation movement requires precision rather than raw power. In arm wrestling, where Devon frequently employs small adjustments in his grip or wrist position to change the angle of attack, the pronator quadratus is likely key to making those minor, fine-tuned movements that help exert consistent pressure on the opponent's hand while maintaining optimal wrist position. The pronator quadratus works synergistically with the pronator teres, flexor carpi radialis, and other wrist flexors to produce coordinated pronation. The coordination between the pronator quadratus and other forearm muscles means that Devon can sustain constant low to moderate pressure during a match without sacrificing too much energy to compensate for minor muscle fatigue. This results in longer-lasting pronation control. In a long arm wrestling match, where muscle fatigue can diminish an opponent's strength, Devon's pronator quadratus likely contributes to sustained high-intensity control over his wrist and forearm, allowing him to maintain pronation pressure longer and making it harder for his opponents to escape his grip. Devon likely possesses a well-developed muscle-mind connection, allowing him to activate his forearm and pronation muscles with maximum efficiency, particularly during explosive moves like the top roll or press. In arm wrestling, Devon's ability to feel and control the tension in his pronator muscles, especially the pronator quadratus and pronator teres, allows him to apply precise amounts of pronation force. This awareness helps him adjust his grip strength and wrist position dynamically during the match, maintaining constant pressure